Have you ever noticed that some people don't need to raise their voice to command respect? They simply stand their ground, speak with intention, and hold firm in any situation. It's not arrogance nor intimidation, it's presence. And that's exactly what I want to share with you today, how to cultivate that attitude that demands respect without shouting, arguing, or picking fights. Because in the end, being respected isn't about the volume of your voice, but the inner strength of someone who knows who they are and refuses to compromise it. Throughout this video, we'll explore together 5 Stoic lessons that reveal how to speak, move, and act in ways that force others to see you differently. These are simple yet powerful principles that can transform how you handle colleagues, family, friends, or any setting where you need to be heard. And don't think it's out of reach. You can start applying them today in your very next conversation. I want you, as you watch, to immerse yourself in the examples and reflections. Ask yourself, have I reacted this way, or do I need to adjust my stance? Feel like you're part of this conversation, absorbing each lesson as training for your everyday life. Before we dive into the first lesson, I propose an important declaration. Write in the comments, "I deserve respect," without having to shout. That phrase isn't just a formality. It's a reminder to your mind that respect begins within you, in how you see yourself and how you stand before others. The more you affirm it, the more naturally you'll act with firmness and tranquility in front of everyone. Let's begin. First, control your tone, not the volume. Picture the scene in detail. Someone gets heated in the middle of a discussion, starts raising their voice, gesturing wildly, slamming the table, or interrupting to force their point. From the outside, it might seem like they have character, showing firmness. But in reality, what they project is insecurity, a lack of self-mastery, and even fear of not being heard. The person who shouts appears strong, but deep down, they convey desperation. Stoic philosophy reminds us that true power never lies in speaking louder than others, but in doing so with firmness, balance, and clarity. Epictetus warned us that it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. In the same way, when our voice slips and rises in volume, what we're showing is that we've handed over control of our inner self to the emotions of the moment, as if we've given our keys to others to manipulate us. Controlling your tone, on the other hand, means choosing serenity as your strategy, turning your way of speaking into a reflection of inner stability. Think of someone you admire, whose words carry real weight. They rarely need to raise their voice because respect flows from the confidence they exude, the calm they project, and the silent firmness that accompanies every phrase. A measured tone, steady breathing, and the absence of rush communicate more strength than any shout, because the one who doesn't need to impose themselves radiates natural authority. Applying this in daily life changes even the smallest gestures. At work, instead of cranking up the volume to be heard in a meeting, speak slowly, using clear and direct sentences. That calm will make others slow down and pay attention. At home, when someone gets irritated and raises their voice, keeping yours low but firm breaks the cycle of argument and shows maturity. Even in casual chats with friends or acquaintances, choosing calm creates an atmosphere of respect around you and prevents others' emotions from dragging you in. The Stoics believed that true freedom lies in governing oneself, and that includes governing your voice. Learning to control your tone sends a silent message to the world. I'm not at the mercy of circumstances. I decide how to act. It's not about faking calm to convince others, but cultivating real serenity inside until your voice becomes the natural echo of that state. When you speak without haste, without tremor, but with firmness, your presence becomes more powerful than any shout. Remember always, raising your voice is, at its core, a confession of weakness, while controlling your tone is the silent signature of inner strength. That's the true authority Stoicism invites us to practice day by day, in every conversation, every word, and every silence we choose to hold. Second, define boundaries and uphold them. In life, there will always be people, situations, and even habits that try to cross what should be inviolable for you. And when you don't make it clear where others' space ends and yours begins, you're handing your peace over to foreign hands. It's no coincidence that the Stoics insisted that living with reason doesn't just mean thinking logically, but also setting clear rules for yourself and defending them without hesitation. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it's absurd to want to flee from men when, in truth, the first thing we must flee is our own passions. This warning shows something essential. Before demanding respect from outside, we must start by respecting our own inner boundaries. Defining boundaries isn't an act of selfishness or coldness, but one of deep self-knowledge and courage. Only those who know what they accept and what they reject can walk with firmness. Otherwise, they become a leaf in the wind, moved by others' desires, whims, and demands. But drawing those lines isn't enough. You have to sustain them in practice, because a boundary that's not upheld is like a paper wall. Everyone knows it's there, but anyone can pass through without effort. When that happens, little by little, you start living not by your will, but submitted to others. And over time, you discover you're no longer the owner of your life, but a guest in it. Applying this in everyday life is simpler than it seems, though it requires discipline. When someone insists on taking your time and energy for something you know you can't handle, it's in that firm and serene no where you reaffirm your dignity. You don't need to shout or over-justify, just show that your word has weight. At work, when a colleague tries to dump responsibilities on you that aren't yours, it's in your clear and calm stance where your boundary becomes visible. That invisible line others sense and end up respecting because they see you respect it first, even with yourself. When you fall into the temptation of accepting a commitment that goes against your values or principles, the boundary acts as a silent guardian, reminding you that integrity is worth infinitely more than any fleeting approval. The Stoics were convinced that true freedom consists in living according to nature and reason. And living with reason means not being dragged by momentary impulses or others' pressure. Epictetus reminded us that as long as we don't govern our desires, we remain slaves, even if no one chains us. Defining boundaries, then, is daily training in self-governance. It's not rigidity or arrogance, it's firmness. You don't build walls to shut out the world, but establish frontiers to protect what's essential in you. That core that can't be negotiated without losing your dignity. When you define your boundaries and hold them, you send the world an unmistakable signal of coherence and seriousness. Others understand that your word doesn't depend on the mood of the moment or the pressure of circumstances, and that consistency generates respect without needing to demand it. More than that, it reinforces in you the confidence that you're building a life aligned with what you believe and what you consider just. It's that coherence that makes others look at you differently because they know manipulation or emotional blackmail won't work with you. So remember always, every time you defend a boundary, you're not just closing a door to the outside, you're opening one to your inside. You're not only saying no to others, but at the same time a resounding yes to yourself, to your peace, to your dignity, to your integrity. That's the true power of boundaries. They don't shrink your world, they expand it, allowing you to live with authenticity. And that's one of the greatest legacies of Stoicism, showing us that respect begins in how we treat ourselves, and from there, it spreads to everything we do and everyone we live with. Third, harness the power of silence. For the Stoics, silence was never absence but presence, a space of strength, mastery, and inner clarity. When someone provokes us, the immediate instinct is to react, raise our voice, respond with the same intensity, defend ourselves almost automatically. Yet in that moment, when we let haste and anger shape our words, we're no longer masters of ourselves. We've handed the reins of our mind to another's impulse. Silence, instead, is the pause that returns control to us, reminding us that we always have the capacity to choose how to respond. Epictetus warned that it's not things themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we form of them. Silence precisely opens the space needed so that opinion doesn't arise from the heat of emotion, but from the serenity of reason. In practical life, silence can become a powerful resource. Think of a work meeting where someone attacks you with harsh words or an aggressive tone. Your impulse might be to strike back in kind. But if you choose to wait, breathe, and hold silence, that act becomes a display of mastery. The other expected your reaction, your explosion. What they find is calm. That contrast disarms, surprises, and shifts the dynamic of the encounter. In family life, it's the same. Faced with an unjust criticism or unnecessary comment, responding immediately only fuels the conflict. Silence, however, can break the chain of tension and show that your balance matters more than winning an argument. Even in simpler situations, like when we talk too much about ourselves seeking approval, silence becomes a lesson in humility. It teaches us to listen more, observe better, and value others' presence without putting ourselves at the center. This principle applies to modern life too. On social media, for instance, when someone leaves an offensive or sarcastic comment, the automatic reaction is to reply and defend yourself. But what does that achieve? Usually nothing but feeding an unnecessary fire. Silence in that context isn't indifference, it's wisdom. You understand that not everything deserves your energy, and not every attack requires a response. Silence also protects your time and peace, preventing you from wasting emotional resources on battles that lead nowhere. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we must have within ourselves a place to dwell in peace. Silence is that place, not just an external strategy, but an internal state. When you learn to harness the power of silence, you discover you don't need to prove yourself every instant, give constant explanations, or enter every debate. You become someone capable of observing from a distance, understanding more deeply, and acting with true wisdom. Silence isn't emptiness, it's fullness, loaded with intention, awareness, and self-respect. Yet it's crucial to understand that silence isn't submission or resignation. It's not about staying quiet in the face of injustice or accepting what goes against your principles. Well-understood silence is the pause that lets you decide how and when to speak, not a renunciation of expression. It's the difference between reacting impulsively and responding with purpose. Silence is the space that opens between the offense and your decision, and it's in that space where true freedom is born. Every time you choose strategic silence, you strengthen the discipline the Stoics valued so much. Without words, you show that you govern your inner self, that you're not swept away by others' emotions or the world's noise. That calm commands respect, because others perceive your strength doesn't depend on shouts or endless arguments, but on the serenity you carry within. And that may be the most powerful demonstration of respect anyone can inspire, the ability to keep your center firm, even when everything around tries to shake it. Fourth, show coherence between words and actions. In Stoic philosophy, coherence between what we say and what we do is one of the firmest pillars of a virtuous life. It's useless to speak of discipline, courage, or serenity if our attitudes contradict those words in practice. Seneca summed it up bluntly: words instruct, but examples inspire. And he was right. We can deliver beautiful speeches and craft profound theories, but if our life doesn't reflect what we proclaim, those words empty out, lose force, and become fleeting noise. Worst of all, we not only lose credibility with others, but with ourselves, slowly undermining our confidence and self-esteem. Showing coherence means taking responsibility to be the first to apply what you defend in theory. It's not an act of vanity, but a silent commitment to integrity. In everyday life, this coherence shows in details that seem simple, but reveal much about who we are. If you claim to value punctuality, your on-time arrival speaks louder than any speech. If you talk of honesty, you must reject even those small lies that seem harmless, but which end up weakening your character. If you defend serenity as a virtue, you can't let a minor setback lead to an explosion. Every action that confirms your word is a step towards strength, and every contradiction is a blow against the credibility you're building. The Stoics always reminded us that true greatness isn't measured by the ability to impress, but by living according to reason and virtue. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote that it's absurd for an educated man not to live as he teaches. This thought reveals that knowledge is nothing without practice, that it's not about convincing others with speeches, but showing with your life that what you believe is possible and real. A word backed by action becomes a magnetic force. It inspires, draws in, and leaves a lasting mark, far beyond the moment. This coherence is also a profound form of self-respect. Every time you follow through on what you promise, even in the simplest things, you reinforce your confidence and build a solid foundation for your self-esteem. In contrast, when you tell yourself you'll do something and don't, even if no one else knows, you're weakening your own inner strength. It's like building a house on fragile foundations. It may seem stable for a while, but eventually it crumbles. That's why starting small is a wise strategy. Promise less, but fulfill everything. Commit only to what you can truly sustain and turn it into a silent demonstration of your integrity. Living a coherent life doesn't mean achieving perfection. No one is free from errors or moments of weakness. Coherence shows also in recognizing a failure, correcting it, and returning to the path. It's not the absence of stumbles, but the willingness to adjust course whenever needed. And that's where true strength emerges, in the daily discipline of watching our actions, in the self-control that avoids contradiction, and in the constancy of living in harmony with our values. In the end, coherence turns your life into your greatest argument. Your words can be debated, your opinions questioned, but a life lived with congruence becomes unquestionable. It inspires respect naturally, because it shows that what you preach isn't empty theory, but real practice. And that's the most powerful teaching we can leave. Not convincing with endless speeches, but with the solidity of a life that reflects, in every act, what it truly believes. Fifth and final, be firm without losing your calm. Being firm without losing calm is one of the most transformative attitudes a person can develop, and the Stoics knew it well. Firmness is necessary to defend principles, set boundaries, and make crucial decisions. But when that firmness gets tainted by anger or impatience, it stops being a virtue and becomes blind stubbornness. Instead of inspiring respect, it generates resistance and exhaustion. True power arises when you unite the firmness of your convictions with the serenity of a balanced spirit. Only then is your authority authentic and recognized without forcing it. Marcus Aurelius expressed it with clarity. The best way to defend yourself is not to become like those who harm you. This teaching reminds us that we don't have to respond in kind to provocations or injustices. The urge to return offense with offense can be strong, but doing so means descending to the other's level and losing control. True firmness isn't measured by the harshness of words, but by the ability to sustain coherence between what we believe and what we do, even amid pressure. Maintaining calm in those moments is what turns a firm stance into moral authority. In daily life, this lesson becomes evident in many scenarios. At work, for example, when someone tries to impose an irrational or unfair decision, your first reaction might be direct confrontation. But Stoicism invites another response. Speak with clarity. Lay out your reasons without raising your voice. Let serenity frame your firmness. That attitude doesn't weaken your position. On the contrary, it strengthens it because it shows you're not hostage to emotion. At home, something as common as a discussion over chores, schedules, or responsibilities can turn into a storm if each side clings stubbornly to being right. Being firm without losing calm in those situations means staying true to what you consider just, but expressing it with respect, showing that your goal isn't to win the fight, but to preserve harmony without renouncing your truth. Even in small everyday encounters, a poor service at a store, an impatient driver on the road, a stranger who provokes you, the difference between exploding and maintaining calm is immense. In one case, you lose your peace and cede your power. In the other, you assert yourself with serenity and force the surroundings to recognize your control. For the Stoics, the greatest victory was never over others, but over oneself. Epictetus put it bluntly, "No man is free if he doesn't master himself, and calm is the clearest sign of that mastery." It's not about faking coldness or hiding emotions, but cultivating an inner state that lets you respond from reason, not reaction. When you're able to unite firmness with serenity, you convey to the world a message that needs no shouts or exaggerated gestures. You're in control not just of the situation, but of yourself. That stability inspires trust, because it reveals your strength doesn't depend on external approval nor crumbles before circumstances. Practicing this blend of firmness and calm requires constancy. Breathe before responding. Pause a moment to organize thoughts. Choose clear words without aggression. Maintain a steady tone even in conflict. All of it is daily training. Each act of self-control is another brick in building a strong, balanced character. Over time, what started as conscious effort becomes habit, then nature. Firmness grows consistent, and calm becomes an unshakable foundation supporting all your relationships and interactions. In the end, being firm without losing calm demonstrates that true authority doesn't come from excess, but from moderation. It's embodying the very essence of Stoicism, governing yourself before trying to govern any external circumstance. And when you achieve that balance, the respect you inspire doesn't stem from fear or imposition, but from that serene strength radiating from your presence, a strength that doesn't need to assert itself because it stands alone, firm, tranquil, and profoundly respected. Congratulations for making it this far. The simple fact that you've dedicated your time to listen, reflect, and seek wisdom already shows how committed you are to improving your life and strengthening your mind. This is a step few dare to take, and you're already one step ahead by choosing to walk with more awareness and firmness. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below telling me what resonated most with you in this video, or how you plan to apply these teachings in your daily life. And if today you don't have something specific to write, just comment gratitude. That way, I'll know you joined me to the end and that you're with me on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe to Voice of Virtue to keep receiving content that will help you live with more clarity, discipline, and inner strength. As this video ends, I'll leave you 2 more filled with Stoic wisdom so you can continue growing with me. Choose one and keep steady on your path of self-mastery and transformation.